I swear, if I ever made a gangster rap album, it would be called Blunt Force Trauma, and it would have so many siren and gunshot samples all over it. Like after every fucking line, put a gunshot sample. It makes it sound so much harder.
That'd be fucking cool.
Not every line, but
what's going on? My name is Chris, and we're actually hanging out with an actual thrash metal vocalist, John Kevill of Warbringer, and he's going to teach us how to be a thrash metal vocalist. Fuck. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. The first part is spill beer everywhere, apparently. Well, so how do I teach you?
What can I learn? Like, is there a certain... What kind of beer do I need to drink during the day?
Honestly, it depends on tour, little to none.
Really?
Yeah. It's that's the secret is you actually take your job really seriously and try to be as much of a professional as possible. I can't survive a tour without basically keeping low key, stretching, water, all this stuff every day that doesn't seem very thrash at all, but the real thing, the most thrash thing people who are trying, or the most metal thing, is to execute 100% live performance that's as good or better than the record you recorded, and you don't do that by fucking around. You know, I'm here for music first. I can have beers any fucking day, and I drink, you know.
Sure.
I'm more, personally, I'm from Southern California, so I'm a pothead over a drinker, so that's kind of a not really a thrash stereotype, but that's my drug of choice.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But going into that, do you think that's a misconception about what the thrash life is like, being on the road all the time? Is it more about taking care of yourself and just preparing for the best show possible?
For me now, yes. For me in the past, no. This is my efforts, my continuing efforts to improve myself. And honestly, I want people who see our shows to be like, God damn, that was the most intense thing I have ever seen. So then the fact is, if I'm fucking getting wrecked every day by day 7 in a row of tour or whatever, no, I'm not hitting the many high notes on the record or whatever. And in the end, that's the thing that makes everybody else get wrecked, drink beers, and go crazy, you know? And that's really my aim, is to entertain people and to give a kind of metal show that I don't feel like you see anymore.
Okay.
Even when you see a lot of the classic bands, that energy that drew you into them, at least me into them in the first place, ain't there. And so that's why I feel like we need to exist.
You need to bring that back, sort of deal.
Yeah.
So in terms of being a vocalist and getting to those highs, do I need to do a certain hand motion?
Well, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really a deliberate thing. I'm infamous for this one, and this is a standard metal gesture. However, I will educate you here. There's a lot more you can do with this. It's just, first off, you're holding an orb. It's obviously like a crackling ball of flaming lightning or something. You would think it hurts, but it doesn't. It actually feels really good. And you don't just do this. If you're doing it right, there's so much power coursing through your body that. And anytime I'm doing this, see, I'm like trembling and shaking. My arms get sore from doing that.
Your biceps double in size too?
They don't, actually, which is kind of a bummer. All the girls are really disappointed. And some of the guys, I guess, free country. Also, then, you can do where you lower it and then you raise it up. You can raise it up and bring it down. You can do 2. You can cast spells upon the audience. You can... pretty much like Hadouken people, and
awesome.
Then there's the Scorpion Winds, which is where 1 up, 1 down. Scorpion Claw is a Scorpion Wins, flawless victory.
Congratulations on the new album, by the way. I fucking loved it. I think a lot of other people enjoyed it as well.
Good.
What can fans expect on this album that they haven't heard from prior Warbringer releases?
I think it really is the definitive Warbringer record. So I think what it is where you get us really ceasing to be a thrash band and starting to be a band that's got its own identity. I think we're probably, of thrash metal bands that are considered thrash first, we're probably, of any that I know of, the most extreme metal influence. And not even specifically death thrash or black thrash, which are things that exist, but kind of all of it. And then on the other hand, we've got that heavy metal kind of approach to the traditional heavy metal approach to songwriting, and a lot of times the guitar solo. I've always tried to do this, and more as I progress musically, but Iron Maiden, every song has a setting, or all the classics, the real great ones do. Aces High, where are you? You're flying. Trooper, you're on a horse. Rhyme of the Ancient Mirror, on a boat at sea, etc. And it's the music already suggests these images, and the lyrics, it's the mark of a good lyricist like Steve Harris and Bruce Dickinson, who to recognize what the music sounds like and to come up with a theme that naturally fits it. So, Guns Fell Silent is a bit of a march, the pace of the riff. So it's the first line, march, there you go. You're a soldier, you're in the trenches, there you are. Silhouettes, you're in post-nuclear world, and that's why it's so hollow at the beginning with the gaps and everything, and how it rolls in and keeps going back to that. It's sort of, I want to suggest this desolation. But basically what the record's going to do, another thing we did with this record is 1 through 5 is probably the most aggressive, straight up barrage of songs we've ever done, probably since the first record, but I think the extremity and the songwriting and the performances are a lot better now. And then 6 through 8 is kind of, it sort of gears down overall, gets more melodic, more dark, and so the idea is it's supposed to just sort of blow your head off 5 times in a row and then make you really feel spiritual desolation at the end.
It's true.
And in that way, I think we're aiming to make a record that has a little more no compromise on aggression whatsoever. In fact, an intensification of aggression. We want to make normal thrash bands look like pussies, basically.
Good.
We want to be a heavy, extreme band, and naturally, therefore, we want to be the most heavy and extreme. And in my view, thrash metal has actually the most room to be the most brutal, because you have that perfect crux of speed, aggression, chugging, screaming, and then memorable songs and elements of personality that I think other extreme genres that have gone for maximum extremity kind of cast that stuff aside, and thus end up being kind of flat and boring sounding, and therefore don't give you that adrenaline surge you're looking for with extreme music.
For sure.
So I find a lot of the modern death metal stuff in particular is really self-defeating the way they write.
It's very copy-paste, insert, X number of blast beats just for the sake of, we need to be this fast on an album.
No, but the thing is, even the feeling of speed doesn't actually come from BPM. It comes from it comes from the music.
For sure.
There's something. Destruction has a lot of them. I call them ambulance riff. They're those thrash riffs with that tonality, like those kind of ones. Kind of just make you want to run in a circle, and they sound urgent. And the tonality compared to a lot of the. A lot of people think lower is heavier, but I don't think that's always true. And I think when you're playing fast, that's often not true, because you want something that's actually music.
Absolutely. On the new album, a song that really stood out for me was Descending Blade, just because you get that narrative of someone being on the battlefield, a sniper. If you could put that song as a soundtrack for any movie, what would it be?
Oh, shit, I don't know. Because the image I have in mind for that one is kind of like... sort of futuristic. You know how I was talking about setting?
Yes.
So shellfire guns are on the old World War I battlefields. Silhouettes is in a post-apocalyptic future. Woe to the vanquished, you're in Imperial Rome marching around with the Legion burning shit. So Descending Blade, I kind of imagine, like a futuristic, Spec Ops guy.
Okay.
So are there any movies about, I don't know, some American Sniper stuff or something really, but the twist in Descending Blade, it's kind of like a Killing Is My Business vibe, where it's a hired killer, and he's specifically a sniper, so he's using every, infrared, futuristic technology to track down and find his victim, but in the last verse, when the music changes...
It turns around.
He just sees that he's in someone else's scope, and the last verse is the second before he's dead. What goes through his head before the bullet hits him.
That's one of my favorite parts of that song.
Oh, yeah. I had that little verse one night up, and I'm like, I gotta do that. And the song was written around that. I actually tracked that vocal line, and then Carlos was like, how the fuck do I get there from here? Because we have kind of the bulk of the song is more kind of compared to the more extreme shit on the first 4 songs of the record, it's more kind of like Bonded by Blood in tempo and, that kind of stuff. The regular speed thrash beat, not the hyper speed thrash beat.
Yeah.
And it's but it goes hyper speed at the end, kind of like the end part reminds me a bit of Pace Till Death Bathory or something,
Yeah, for sure.
So we're trying to straddle that line between the neighboring genres of thrash and heavy metal on one side, and then Black and Death on the other.
For sure.
And kind of, especially the bands that sit between them, it's really fertile grounds for influence, and honestly one that I think not enough bands take.
For sure. When you were younger, what were the what were the artists that made you want to start singing, or the vocalists that you think you drew a lot of inspiration from?
Well, guys I like and guys I'm directly inspired from are different. So I'll start with the first, I guess. Ronnie James Dio, Bruce Dickinson, Eric Adams from specifically the 80s Man-O-War records. Some tracks on the later stuff, but
Yeah.
he's a better singer in the 80s, I think.
I agree.
Virgin Steel from Marriage of Heaven and Hell Part 1 through House of Atreus 2. And as well as a few really good songs on Age of Consent. That dude's a highly, highly underrated vocalist, and the whole thing I kind of get from him.
Nice.
For thrash metal, more direct influences, I would say Demolition Hammer, specifically the second record, Sacrifice, specifically the second and third records. I'll say that the High Scream I do, because when I was learning vocals, I always loved the Halford, Man-O-War, just like traditional heavy metal high wails and songs, but I didn't have like a melodic singing voice because this was my first band and I'd never done that before. I kind of developed it a bit now.
Okay.
I kind of learned how to do high vocals because I knew I wanted that in there. You know, I didn't want to be one of those guys who's like always on one register. Yeah. I want to have those like sudden banshee highs in there, and I kind of got it from Sacrifice, Forward, Determination, actually from this city.
Yep.
Like like that sound. Yeah. I kind of get that. I was singing that stuff in my car, and I found I was able to make that sound pretty well. And so I kind of just tried to develop on that and kind of land somewhere between that and like Rob Halford,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. It's really cool seeing guys like you chilling with people after the show, signing autographs, having a drink. It's kind of, I feel like in today's day and age, a lot of bands that are charging an arm and a leg for meet and greets, it kind of takes away from the experience that you get from a niche market like metal. Do you agree with that?
If I were a fan and I had money, I would buy meet and greet tickets just to go tell the bands to fuck themselves for doing meet and greet tickets.
Thank you.
If you're an artist, goddammit, the fans already paid to get the show. They already paid to get your record and even know who you are. And they probably, paid for a patch or a t-shirt or something. They already paid you for your time. Give it to them. Simple. You're an artist. You owe your fans something. End of story. Fans don't owe you something. Other way around. And any musician worth their salt thinks that. And the fact that all these old bands who once were this way are no longer, in my opinion, has something to do with the declining quality of their records.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And speaking of decline of records, just before we were talking about the Saint Anger record.
Gonna make me spit out one.
It's okay, we got more in the bag. But so that Saint Anger riff, how did you describe it again?
Oh yeah, we were talking about it. I said just from my personal songwriting perspective, between that intro riff, the like that one, which is kind of pretty muddy sounding, so I don't really.
It's mucky, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little muddy. Into the verse, the Saint Anger, that is like the worst transition I know of. Those two parts have nothing to do with each other, and it's just, and that record had like $1 million budget or something stupid, by the way. So it's the old polish a turd thing. You got to have good ideas first, and just because you had good ideas in the 80s does not mean you have any left.
Wholeheartedly agree with that. It's pretty pathetic these days. Who would you say is the best vocalist in thrash metal other than this guy named Carpizzle from Toronto? He's a bit of a local legend, but who would you say is the best vocalist in thrash?
I have no idea who Carpizzle is, so he wouldn't have gone on the list.
Oh, fair.
Let's see, best vocalist in thrash. That depends, I guess, on what you're going for, because there is the more like melodic wing of thrash vocals and the more vicious one. For thrash, well, you know which side I'm on. I'm into a lot of the Bay Area stuff, the Chuck Billy style stuff. That's a great vocalist for sure. But I was more drawn into the Morbid Saint, Demolition Hammer, Dark Angel. The trying to impersonate a machine gun with the human voice, that kind of stuff. So I really like Mila Petraza, circa Pleasure to Kill through Extreme Aggression. I think is my favorite vocals from him. He's kind of gotten a different style now, which is more suited for the more melodic music they're doing today, but I really like the just that kind of cadence. And I like Bobby Blitz as a live frontman. I think is really good. And one thing as a vocalist, I paid a lot of attention to him for stage banter. He's one of the best at it.
He is. I would agree with that,
Pay
too.
attention to what he says between the songs. He always has. He's charming, you know. He always managed to say something like cool and memorable and not stock, and you know. So he's really good at that, and that's something I watched him on a bunch. And personally, I think Bobby Blitz is like the thing that carries Overkill into exceptionalism.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because riff-wise, they're not as crazy as, say, like Extreme Aggression, Epidemic of Violence. They let the riffs kind of sit in the background of the verses and give Blitz the spotlight, whereas most thrash bands do kind of the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I kind of try to sit in the middle of that because we're a more extreme riff-dominated band, but yet I don't want to be in the background. And it's fuck no, you know. And a lot of times metal, especially thrash, people say like, "Oh, the vocals don't matter. It's whatever." No.
Yeah.
The thing I love about thrash metal vocals is that there's so many bands with an instantly identifiable singer. Mm-hmm. You know, even some of the weird ones, like Violence vocals, are really divisive, but you know who it is. It's not another guy who's like, "This is," you know, like there's so many of those dudes.
There's way too many. Rad Pit Story, is that like the craziest thing you've probably seen at one of your shows?
Rad Pit Story goes down to Ice Cream Festival, I think 2009, 2010, somewhere around there in Mexico City. It was our first time there, and so you know how the old like Greek amphitheaters were, where it's that stone, like the semicircle stone tiered stages.
Yep.
The crowd standing area was that, but yet we're in Mexico at a thrash show, so they're gonna pit.
Yeah.
And it was a big show, a couple thousand people or something, and they were pitting on concrete tiered, you know, stages. So the circle pit not only is going like that, but it's going like that. You know, it's up and down, and there was blood on the ground, lots of it.
That's probably the most thrash thing I've heard all day. That's awesome.
Mexico, dude, they're wild.
Fucking A. Well, Warbringer, new album, Woe to the Vanquish, out now on Napalm Records. Go buy it, don't be a fucking turkey.
Woe to the Vanquish rhymes with bro, that is dank shit.
True say. Cheers to that.
Yeah.